So thank you for the very warm introduction, Eric. I have not got such a warm introduction before ever. So thank you so much. I think there is nothing much to talk about myself. To introduce myself, I think Eric, you have done a great job. So I'll directly jump on to what I'm supposed to talk. So before I start talking about my session, a bit of a disclaimer. The story what I'm going to tell is very personal to me, and this is what I have been seeing, hearing, learning for the last 6 years, working with startups, medium and small and medium enterprises, and also large enterprises like M brands across United States, United Kingdom, Singapore, India, Hong Kong, Israel, everywhere. The pattern is very similar. The story is very common. The problems are very similar, but each one of them, geographically, from the business perspective, from the size of the company perspective, they are all trying to solve it. Some of them have solved it to a very large extent, and some of them are taking the baby step, being brave and taking those baby steps towards solving it. So if you are not going through a modernization journey, if you are a developer just building stuff, greenfield, you may not relate to what I say today. But if you have been running on data center and recently moved to AWS, hear me out. I'm going to show you the future, and that's my story. So how many of you are going through modernization journey today? Can you raise your hand? Wow. So that means, so hear me out. So this is what I have been kind of experiencing and learning. So we all know 2009 and 10 and 11 is when AWS cloud started picking up, and there was a lot of skepticism when AWS cloud started. Hey, cloud, you don't have access to the data, you can't access your logs, security concerns, blah blah blah. We passed through that resistance and we started migrating, especially the enterprise segments, especially the banks and healthcare. So banks, or rather, BFSI, we call it banking and financial services. They are one of the key drivers in terms of adopting any new technology. So certain banks in the United States or maybe somewhere else in the world, they started driving migration to AWS. So what they did is either they did or they kind of signed up with a large global consulting partner or a global system integrator, we call it. So they did a lift and shift. So they took the VMs running on probably VMware, probably running on Nutanix or Cisco HUCS. They moved as it is to AWS cloud and called themselves, we are now on the cloud. And CFO is happy because he was promised that if you move to cloud, you will save a lot of cost, and your budgets would come down, and your Excel sheet looks very happy and feels very happy and whatnot. So yeah. So after 18 months, when the workloads were moved from data center to cloud as it is. When I say as it is, the databases were running on VM on data centers. It was migrated to AWS cloud as it is. Very few people took the brave step of moving it to RDS. So there was absolutely no thought of modernization. We just want to get on AWS cloud because they are paying a huge license fees to all these data center providers and in the verge of contract renewal. So they had to quickly get on cloud so that they can save a lot of costs in terms of their licensing and data center. So 18 to 20 months, 24 months roughly, the CFO starts running in his corridor towards the CTO room saying that, hey, you told me that after migrating to cloud, my costs are going to decrease. Look at the AWS bill. It's burning a kind of a hole in my pocket. What the heck are we doing? Don't you think we should go back to the traditional way of doing it? At least we have CapEx and OpEx was a different budget, and CapEx is a very different budget. So CTO is like, hold on a minute, there should be something wrong. He picks up the phone, calls the technical account manager or then account manager at AWS and says, hey dude, you asked me to migrate to cloud, saying that the cost and the billing will be reduced. But look at where I am today. My CFO is behind me. He's holding a gun on to kind of my head, and the cost is increasing. So TAM comes and says, you know what? You're using AWS as another data center. You are not using the managed services of data center, managed services of AWS. You are just using AWS as a data center. That's not what AWS is built for. There is a lot of managed services that we offer, RDS, S3, SQS, SNS, and stuff like that. You need to break down your application and start running on managed services, and automatically the cost will be reduced. And also start looking at containerizing your application in the name of microservices. Well, we'll keep the conversation of microservices and monoliths for another day. We'll park it for another day. Let's only talk about the modernization. The CTO is like, okay, all cool. I agree with you. Let's migrate out of the existing EC2 machines as we migrated, then start leveraging some of the managed services. Either some of the companies managed to do it, or some of the companies managed to sign up with the large GSIs, as I said. They came in and they started containerizing their business applications in the name of modernization, in the name of microservices. I see one of the few audiences are smiling, so that means my story is very much relatable. And so they started containerizing, and you are done, you're all good to go. You have now modernized successfully. And I've specifically put this slide because, no offense, with all due respect, lot of global system integrators are Indians, are Desis, and as a Desis, we love. Yes. But those Jugaads don't work, Those Jugaads don't work for a very long time. By the way, I have done a lot of research to figure out what is the shelf life of Jugaad. Can you guess what is the shelf life of Jugaad?
What is Jugaad?
Okay. Probably in the evening. So the shelf life of Jugaad roughly starts at 18 months. It can go till 24 months. After that, your Jugaads will not work. You need to do serious problem solving. So personally, I believe there are 3 ways to solve the problems, right? You have a problem, you throw money at the problem, you throw people at the problem, you actually solve the problem. So Jugaad will not solve the problem. We have to do something else to actually solve the problem. So how do we solve that problem, right? So we are at a stage where we have kind of semi-modernized or kind of re-platformed per se. When I say re-platform, you are still running your old garbage code with a new infrastructure abstract, not the infrastructure itself, right? You're running on VMs, then you started running on EC2s. Now you started running on containers, right? In the name of modernization. So all well, happy engineering team, happy CFOs, happy CTOs. The Jugaad is working well. It's been kind of few months, and soon after 18 to 24 months, the stage comes where you are at the verge of breaking your application, because what people don't really consider in this journey when they migrate, modernize, re-platform is the business is constantly evolving, right? You are only focusing on running your existing code base. At the same time, your engineering team parallelly writing a lot of code to drive the evolving business, which most of the people don't consider. So at one side, you have managed services, you are containerized, okay, you are semi-modernized. At the same time, as I said, the engineering team is building on the garbage code which was already modernized, right? So it's a ticking time bomb. It's going to be a ticking time bomb. It's just a matter of time that is going to explode. And one fine day, again, the same Jugaad timeline, 18 to 24 months, the business has evolved so much that your engineering team can't monkey patch anymore. How many of you understand monkey patching? Okay, good. So people who don't know monkey patching, just Google for it. You will realize what monkey patching is. So you keep building on top of technical debt, and you know the trade-offs, and one fine day you reach a stage where you can't monkey patch anymore. You can't build any more features anymore. That means your business team is running behind you, engineering team. Your product team is running behind engineering team saying that, hey, I asked for a product, I asked for a feature 6 months ago, where is it? And why the heck it is taking 6 to 8 months to bloody deliver a very small feature? The director of engineering, VP of engineering comes back and say, oh, you know what, we recently modernized. So in the name of modernization, we did a lot of re-architect databases and stuff like that. So to build your feature, we have to do a lot of things, so it takes a lot of time. So product and sales team, businesses team are not happy with how the engineering is kind of delivering at the speed the engineering teams are delivering. So they call for an emergency meeting saying that, hey, this is not working. Either we kind of build a new product, or we buy a new product, or we build a new product. Build versus buy, right? So if you look at it, buying any product today out of shelf, maybe SaaS or maybe in an enterprise application, will only solve 60 to 70% of your business problems. So rest 40%, you need to hire another professional services agency. So again, GSI is going to come. I don't want to name them. And you know the Indian Jugaad is starting again because you have to fill the 40% gap which is left by the product. And then you finally kind of have a way to kind of come back and start doing GTM. Buying a product gives you an initial time because you can get the kickstart really early, but it takes a long time to build that, the gap, the features, the integrations and whatnot. And it will also not give you much of freedom. So the other option is you need to build. Can your engineering teams build? Because they have already a lot of pressure on them to maintain the existing products, because that's what bringing the bread and butter to the organization. They can't afford to lose that application. They can't shut down. So it has to be a parallel effect. It has to be a parallel effort to build another application. So what do we do at this point in time, right? Either you buy or a build. Build, you don't have a much of bandwidth to build. It's very hard, and you have to build on a top of new platform, the technology of today, the programming language of today, the infrastructure of today, so that you can survive for next 5 to 8 years, right? So this is when we enter the modernization era, the modernization that I call the real modernization, which is refactoring, right? So what is refactoring? So if you look at your existing application code today, the legacy one, 40 to 50% of your existing application is a technical debt. It is not making any sense to the business, but you are still paying to run those resources, which is a huge cost to the business. And this is where the lot of CFOs has problem. And people may think, hey, no problem, I don't have engineering team. I have engineering team, but the engineering team does not have enough bandwidth. So I will use GenAI and, kind of modernize my entire legacy application. So you must know, any AI engine today, whatsoever it is, there are hundreds of them. It can't differentiate between what is technical debt, what is not, what is useful code, what is not useful code. So that is something a business team, a product team, and an engineering team should take a call, look at the future roadmap, how the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years is going to look, and modernize, keeping those future roadmap in perspective with using today's technology, which can last for next couple of years or next couple of decades probably to come. So another thing is, the another factor that enforcing modernization today is a lot of legacy applications are built without keeping data in mind, right? Today, if you want to do any kind of GenAI stuff, the primary thing that you need is a clean state, which is a clean state of data. A lot of these applications, which was built 10, 12, or 20, or 15 years ago, never had the mindset of data as a first-class citizen. That data always came as an afterthought, not as the first thought, right? But if you're building today, if you're building something today as a greenfield, or rather as a modernizing something today, your primary thought would be, how do I exploit, leverage the data from the business application, because I need to leverage this data so that I can drive my GenAI journey with the organization. So when you're modernizing today, it's very important that you have the data as a first-class citizen, not as a second-class citizens, which we forgot, or rather which we were not aware when we were building 10, 12 years ago, right? So that is one thing. So I'm a big advocate of serverless. But at the same time, I also say that, a lot of people are using Kubernetes as one size fits all. And I strongly advocate not to do that with serverless as well. Like, you can't throw every problem at serverless and say, I have used serverless, it should be cheap, it should be cost effective. And throwing every problem at Kubernetes, say, it should be easy and it should not be complex and stuff like that. You need to be smart enough to figure out the trade-off, as Dr. Warren Vogel says in his Frugal architect, that architecture is the selection of trade-offs, right? You know what you're trading off and you know what you're building for. So you need to choose what is right for your workload. I strongly advocate because at serverless first, because the cost drastically reduces. Like, we have seen 40-50% cost reduction in terms of running the application, and the developer velocity increases drastically. And number two, your operational burden reduces by a very large extent. So if you're building today, you can think about what is the right infrastructure for you and what is the right services for you. And I have seen a lot of companies complexifying the modernization journey, because especially with AWS, there are a lot of queuing options. Like, you can use SQS, you can use Kinesis, you can use Kafka, you can use some other services. A lot of people start with using the most complicated services with the queue. In fact, you can actually start with the most simple thing. One of the most powerful tool, not many people appreciate it, is SQS. It is like built like a rock solid, and it can pretty much solve a lot of problems. You don't need a very complex, kind of queuing systems to manage the queue in your enterprise application. So you can start small with small services, easy to start with services, rather than just going with large or little complicated services, right? And modernization is not just modernizing your code base. That should be the last thing to modernize. Before you modernize your code base, modernize your engineering operation. Not many people talk about engineering operations. Engineering operations forms the fundamental of your application, whether you're modernizing or building a greenfield, whether you're building a serverless application or Kubernetes or a GenAI. Focus on engineering operations. It's very hard to get it right, but once you get it right, it's like a template. You can kind of run it forever and ever. So modernize with your engineering operation. Modernize the culture of your team, how they approach the problem, and what's their mindset. And second thing is FinOps. So we are very used to the consumption-based model. In EC2 or the Kubernetes space. But when you move to serverless space, the consumption model is very different, right? You pay as per you consume. You don't pay as you go, right? So you need to re-architect and restructure your consumption model, especially with FinOps. Then comes your data, because you're going to use the data to drive your GenAI journey. And at last comes your code base. So code base is very easy today. Like if you have figured out what is that 40% technical debt which you don't want to modernize, it's probably very easy with a lot of tools. And as my partner, colleague, and Akshata spoke today about modernizing using GenAI, it's pretty easy. At least initially it was, before GenAI it was 100, now it is, I can say, 80. I mean, there's still a lot of efforts required, but there are a lot of copilots which will help you to modernize, right? So this is 6th dimension of the modernization. And as I said, start with small wins. I know there will be a lot of internal resistance. So start modernizing your non-critical workloads, show some small wins, get the trust of your leadership, and then start going by modernizing with your larger and more critical workloads. It is called Strangler Fig pattern. You can search for it. It's a very well documented pattern and practice that we also use to modernize. And the other pattern is Chorus. You can read about that. So modernization is a culture. Just because you finished your modernization today, it doesn't mean that you're not going to modernize forever. Modernization has to become a part of culture, because every day something or the new thing will coming up, and your application has to be architected in such a way, when you're modernizing, of course, that it can absorb new thing to a very large extent and focus on cost, efficiency, and developer velocity. One thing what I have seen talking to so many customers who have been adopting serverless is keeping aside the cost, keeping aside the operational burden which serverless reduces, the non-tangible or intangible unit is developer productivity. You take Kubernetes, you take EC2, you take DevOps. Almost 28 to 32% of the time by these teams spend in operating infrastructure, not writing the new set of code or not writing good code. So when you go to serverless, automatically you can use that 28 to 32% of the time to write new set of code on serverless, because serverless eliminates the operational burden. So at the end of the day, this should be the outcome of your modernization, right? I'm very sure with traditional applications, you have been spending 80% of your time running the application and 20% of your time managing, building new features, right? 80% of the application, 80% of the time to kind of run the application, manage the application, and 20% of the time building new feature. After modernization, it should be other way around. 80% of the time you should be using to build new features which adds value to the business, and 20% of the time should be spent on managing the applications. So that's what serverless brings on the table. So yeah, key takeaways: don't modernize for the sake of it. It's a very long journey. It's a very hard journey. So take very conscious decision and involve key stakeholders. Starts with engineering, operation, and data, and then move to code. Code is the easiest one, and that should be the last one. And with GenAI and serverless, it's a supercharged combination to build application, to modernize application, go leverage and build. So thank you so much. That's my session.